Okay, so let's continue doing expanded notation using decimals. So let me just take a simple example. Before I do, though, I just wanted to remind you that this is the tenths and this is the hundredths. So suppose I had 31 hundredths. So if I were to get that out in place value blocks form, it would be 3/10, 1, 2, 3, and then 1/100th. So if I were to break that apart, it would be 3/10. I have 3 of them, and each one is worth 1/10, so I have 3/10 plus 1/100th. So when I'm putting 31/100ths in expanded form, that's what it would look like. So let's look at another example. Suppose there was 74 hundredths. Then the picture would look like this. Let me erase this. So here's 70, or here's 7/10, and then let's change this to 5/10. And then here's 5/10. So I have 7/10 and then 5/100ths. Okay, and exactly like the same strategies I've been using with the whole number, it's the same with decimals. So like if I have 75 hundredths, I just bring down the first digit, and you can put a 0 there if you want, but probably in your answers you won't see it. And then put a 0 here, and then 5. And then there's your expanded form right there. 0.7 plus 0.05. So here's another example I wanted you to look at. Here's what it looks like when you take it and then you just bring down one digit and put a 0 in that spot, and then bring down that second digit and add it together. So like I said, that 0 doesn't have to be there. If you put it in there, you know, you're doing that so you can add correctly, but like your final answer probably won't have it. So this is one way to see it. So I want you to do these 6 questions, put them in expanded form. Press pause, do the problems, press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so this is 2/10 because it's in the tenths place, and then that 9 is in the hundredths place, so I'm going to make sure that 9 ends up in the hundredths place. 4 because it's in the tenths place, and then the 6 is in the hundredths place, 7 in the tenths place, 5 in the hundredths place, 8 in the tenths place, 9 is in the hundredths place, 2 in the tenths place, 1 in the hundredths place, 1 in the tenths place, 8 in the hundredths place. A lot of common mistakes students make is they do 0.2 plus 0.9. And you know what? If you add it up, it actually equals 1 and 1/10. An expanded form means, like, you know, each digit is in its own place value. So you have to make sure, you know, like, oh, this has a number before it, and then there's a decimal. So there's like your number, and then a number before it, and then a decimal. So make sure you're aware of that. Okay, I wanted to talk about this in expanded form because you also need to know how to look at these also past the decimal. I mean, honestly, you could have something all the way up to 1 billion and then tenths and hundredths, which that does increase a lot of workload. I'll probably end up just going up till here because once you've mastered it, you know, we don't need to do all the way up to 1 billion and like so many practice problems like that. 1 or 2, and you know you've got it. So let's look at this. 4 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4 whole ones. And if you've seen my decimal video on representations, the ones place when it comes to decimals is actually a hundreds block because 100 cents make $1, so we use that to represent that. And then 2/10, which are these. And then 3/100, which are these. Okay, so just take a look at that, and then let's break one up, each one individually. So this is 4 whole, so I'm going to say that. This is 2/10. So I'm going to say that. And then this is 3/100. So I'm going to say that. And so that's what it looks like in expanded form. You're saying you have 4 ones. Well, here they are. You're saying you have 2/10. Well, here they are, 2/10, which equals, 20 cents. You have 3/100, which is this. Now, sometimes this confuses people because they're like, wait, this? What's that? And how do I connect it all? So every whole number has like this invisible decimal after it. And that decimal only comes up like if you're actually dealing with decimals. But like if you've ever noticed in calculators, sometimes your number is like right there and then there's like this little decimal in the corner. So that's where, you've probably seen it. So if you think about it, it's like 4.0 and then 2 and then 0.03. So in that case, you have to fill these in with zeros. And then if you add it up, you get your original answer. So beware that your whole numbers, when they're in expanded form, they're not going to give it to you like this. Like they're not going to say, okay, let's make it super easy for them and show them that it's 4.0 and, all they got to do is line it up. No, they want to make sure that you're aware that you can recognize a whole number and the decimal that goes after it. So your answers, like if you have an assignment or a test, this is what it's going to look like. So if you do this, like if you take it and you put it at the top and you get that, you need to be prepared to take that and change it into that. Okay, so let's look at this one, 3 and 49/100. So, if you were to do it the other way, where you bring the number down one by one, like that, to get the expanded form, well, when you rewrite it, you might do this, but again, your test or your assignment is going to give it to you like that. So I want you to do a few in this next video clip on your own and check. One more thing I wanted to go over is the representation. So it's 3 ones, 4 tenths, and then 9/100. So remember, in decimals, it's a little backwards. And, the question on your assignments will always say, which of the following representations best represents the decimal 3 and 49/100. So you will expect like that opposite weird stuff happening. But if it's 349, then, this would be the ones and that would be the tens and that would be the hundreds. So don't worry. Okay, I want you to do these 5 on your own. I purposely put 2 that go all the way to the tens place, but if you know how to take a ones place and understand the decimal, then you should be able to do these 2. And I purposely left some with missing place value. So remember, you don't have to say 0.0 in your expanded form. If it doesn't exist, you can just skip it. Okay, so looking at this, I see 3 digits. And so I see that this is before the decimal, so I know that's that's not ones. And then I know that's going to be 0.6, which is the tenths place. And then that 2, this is the trickiest one that people forget. That 2 has to be in the hundreds place. So if you do 7 plus 0.6 plus 0.2, that's incorrect. So looking at this one, that's my whole, that's my tenths, and then there's my hundredths. There's my ones, but look at this. I don't need anything for the tenths. And then this is 20 plus 5. So think of 25 in the expanded form. It's 20 plus 5. And then 3 tenths, and then 1/100ths. 10 plus 6 plus 7/100ths. Okay, so now let's work it backwards. We have 9 plus 4 tenths plus 8/100ths. So remember that invisible decimal after 9. And I'm going to go ahead and put 9.00 because I know this goes 2 places after the decimal. So then I'm going to just line everything up. and there's my answer. It's that easy. So let's do 10 plus 2 plus 3/10. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to do 2 after because this has only 1 after the decimal. And then plus 2. Now be careful because this looks like this and this looks like this. So make sure you line up your decimals correctly. Like ideally, this is how you would do it. You could first write it exactly the way it's given it to you, and then you can fill in your zeros. Now let's look at the next two. Let me get my eraser. So 4.5 and 9/100ths. Now I'm going to add in all the zeros. 4 and 59/100ths. And then here's 3. Remember that invisible decimal. Decimal 7, decimal 06. Just like that. Let's do some more like this, and let's take it to the hundredths place. Okay, so looking at this, think of just these 3. Just focus on the whole numbers. That's 100 plus 80 plus 2. We know that's how we would write it. And then just put your invisible decimals right there. And then keep going. Plus decimal 7 plus decimal 05. And then just fill it in. This is also very good practice for adding decimals because it can be really tricky. Okay, let's go over this one. You can even, like, since this is what they're giving you and they just want the final answer, honestly, you could do that in your head. You know what I mean? And then you can do this. At the end of the day, they just want the final answer. So that can be a good shortcut if you want, especially if like the numbers get bigger. I want you to try these 3 on notebook paper. Press pause, work the problems, press play when you're ready to check. I want you to be aware that this one goes up to 6,000, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single one of these has like a place value for all 4 of them. And press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so this one, I'm going to go ahead and group that to 497, and then 0.2, and then 0.09. That would be like your 0, and then your 9. This one is just 6,010, okay? And then decimal, and then that 8 takes that spot. And then this is 21 and 6/10. I don't see anything in the hundredths place.